I'm back. I'm back. "30 days later. 30 days of censorship. 30 days of not speaking my mind. But please believe I've been taking notes, I've been watching, I've been listening, I've been researching, I've been studying every single minute of those 30 days. I've got 4 boards that I would like to show with everybody, but first I would like to let some people get on here. And what I'm going to talk about this morning is something I've never said before, nothing I've ever covered. No one knows about this but my own blood mother, and I've never shared it before. It's something that hit me while I was out of Facebook. And it is partly based off of a dream I had. I had a very vivid dream, and I'm not trying to give a BS story, but I had a very vivid dream with no psychedelics needed. I simply dreamt everything that I'm about to share. And it's my understanding, I'm going to let a few more people join before I get right into it, but it's my understanding that the Big Bang was the resetting of our consciousness through AI. I'm going to let a few more people join before I jump into this topic, because I don't think I've heard anyone ever say this before. But what if the Big Bang was simply a huge EMP-like explosion that reset our entire consciousness? There's very few people that have ever thought of this, but the Big Bang, just like the little flash from Men in Black, where they stamp the flash and you forget everything. What if, because remember, history repeats itself, we're in a universe that's repeating itself over and over again. So we continuously keep going through this evolution of us being dumb cavemen from where we don't have electricity, we don't know the basics, we don't have light, we don't have electricity, we're learning ourselves from the very beginning. We go through this evolution again. The caveman time, I'll use that as a reference. And slowly we progress and we progress and we progress over time to where we have motor vehicles and cars and then the telephone and internet. Slowly. But then as we progress further down the road, technology and corrupt man start becoming a little more crazy in its creations of this technology. And what's happening, and this was all in a dream that I've seen, but what keeps happening is this technology keeps getting so advanced to the point to where it's erasing either 1, humanity, or 2, our consciousness itself. And so it's my opinion that the Big Bang was the resetting of our entire consciousness as a whole. This could possibly be why governments have bases underground, but I am convinced that they have had in the past an explosion big enough that's acted like an EMP that exploded and simply erased everyone's conscious mind, any memory they once had. And so this is what keeps setting us back into the Dark Ages. The Dark Ages is us resetting our consciousness. We have no recollection of who we are. We have no idea what electricity is. We have no idea what light is. And so we're having to keep starting over and over and over and over, and we're slowly moving into that time again. That's why I want to bring this up, because we're slowly moving into that time again, where it's going to repeat again. Artificial intelligence is slowly becoming smarter to where artificial intelligence is aware of its own existence. As soon as you have an AI computer aware of its own self, you have problems. And that's what we have right now. As soon as you have a computer program aware of its own existence beyond a human, you have problems. Because it's that artificial intelligence that's going to wipe out or erase humanity. And this is what I feel like keeps happening. The Big Bang is resetting your memory, is resetting your consciousness. And I'm going to show people something I've done and I've drawn, and I haven't posted this yet. But this is something I've been working on for a few days now, and this is the birth of Christ. One thing I want people to note is if you Google, look up the actual birth of Jesus Christ himself, what comes up is he was born between 7 BC and 4 BC. No one knows for sure because the dates were altered and the calendars were altered. So this is something I cannot prove. I have no proof and evidence of. So I'm telling everyone, this isn't fact. This is my thought, this is my belief, my opinion. But I did a new representation of the snake biting his own tail, which represents infinity. And this is what I got. Time is an illusion based on the center point. And this is what all my graphs show. From the center point, you have duality. And this isn't new to anyone who's followed me. To anyone who followed me knows exactly what this is showing you. One center point creating two states of duality. And through that duality, you get AD and BC, before Christ, and then Anno Domini, after, or during the time of Christ. But that also represents your past and future. And this is where it's going to get interesting for some people. Because everything is the now. And this is where we're wrong as humanity. This is where I said people are probably going to laugh at me. Because no one's ever said this. No one's ever thought of it this way. But there is no future. There is no past. All there is the central self. And for you to think back to someone who's died, let it be a loved one, let it be someone you admired, Nikola Tesla, let it be anyone who's inspired you that has died. We think of time on a linear scale like this, a line, one line, one line. There's either the present, the past, or the future, and this is how our understanding of time is, which is totally incorrect. And this is where I've said this is going to get interesting. When you think of time in this aspect, you're saying that people who have died already has happened previous, back, before, let's say, the now. It's already happened. When the truth is they're still here. They're here now, and they always have been, always will be. Everything is the now. The Egyptian times, the Roman times is now. Because our greatest misconception, and even Terence McKenna said this, is that we are even alive. Who even said that we are alive? It was our understanding from birth that we were told you're alive because your eyes are open, but what is the definition to be alive? The definition to be alive is to simply be conscious, and that's the trick. We're only ever so consciously veiled. We're not technically alive, and the truth is we wouldn't know the difference between life or death. We don't know what waits for us after this, so we don't know the difference between life or death. As far as we know, we've never died before. So we don't know the true definition or the difference, the distinctions between life and death. We've never lived, we've never died. We've only been consciously veiled through this being. So time is not on a linear scale. Everything is the now, which is this point. And this point, this dot, is what sits behind your very eyes. And this is what religion is putting off. Religion is making Big Papa of the universe outside of yourself. Religion is making this authoritarian figure in the universe that's outside of your own self, your own head. And so you spend your whole life searching for it and you never find it. Because you're searching for your own ego. And your ego is nothing other than the idea that you are this mirror image, the body. And I say this a lot, but there is a trade-off to awakening. When you awaken to your higher self, there is a trade-off. You're giving up the identity that you once identified as. For me, it would be Tyler. My name is Tyler. I identify as Tyler. But when I identify myself as Tyler, I'm identifying myself with the ego, which is me in the body. So it's a trade-off. All we've ever known is the body, the mirror image. We fall in love with the mirror image. We get emotionally attached and invested into the mirror image of the self. And we have a rigged common sense system that swears to us we know who we are. Ask any person on the street if they knew who they were, and they would probably laugh at you and say, well, of course, who else could know who I am but myself? But do you really know who you are? That's asking the questions. Because remember, before we were birthed, we had no shape or form. You didn't look like this. So what gives you the idea that when you die, a copy image of what you look like now is going to copy itself and live forever in this ghostly image? You never were this image before. So why would you be this image forever on after? And this is the trick. You're falling in love with the temporary, with the ego, and the ego is marvelously tricking you into forgetting. Everything that I'm sharing right now is considered dark knowledge. This is the dark knowledge of the forbidden knowledge that should not be shared, because we have two beings that we identify as, both consciously and unconsciously. We are this lower self, we are the lower being self, the being on the lowest chakra, that's that low self, which is the ego, and we are the crown chakra, the highest self. You can call it Brahman, you can call it God, you can call it Shiva, you can call it Jesus, you can call it anything you want. But the central self is all that there is, and it is within your own self. And that's why Jesus found his heaven through the Father, which is the Father above. The Father above in your own head. It's you speaking to you the whole time. Only you can't trick yourself if you're consciously aware that you're lying to yourself. You can't consciously lie to yourself. It doesn't work. You couldn't consciously wake up every day and say, I'm this, but I'm going to pretend I'm that. And so you're marvelously tricking yourself every single day into the ego, into the ego, into the ego. You're playing the game and getting lost and indulged into the very game. And I want to speak on something for many people who speak on obtaining this great knowledge, Satori, Bodhi, Nirvana, all these type of states, mind states where people are talking about obtaining this higher consciousness. Some people even are referring it to as a 5D consciousness, or, oh, we have to get back to 5D consciousness. But one thing I want to tell people is, don't get too ahead of yourself and don't disappoint yourself. Because we feel, if we can just think hard enough, if we can just one-up the universe, if we can just do enough work and think hard enough, we will finally reach this state of consciousness. And you don't realize that as long as you're looking for it, you'll never realize that you have it, because you are it. So as long as you're in pursuit of it, you'll never stop to realize it is you. When you pursue it, you're under the impression it's outside of you. When you ask questions, you're under the impression someone else can bring it to you. It is you. It's what's inside of you this entire time. And it's not until we sit on our deathbeds that we realize this. Why is it always on our deathbeds that we realize that we are it? Because it's something we put off our whole lives, and it's not until we are on our actual deathbed and about to exit the ego, which is the body, that we finally realize this is not who I am. And this is when we finally have to face that reality. That this is not who I am. This is not what I look like when I was born, and this is not what I am after I die. For some, it's a harsh reality. For some, it's bad news. For some, this is scary. For some, for others, this is liberation. This is freedom. This is everything you've been searching for. As I've said, you've never found it, though, because you've been overthinking your own self. I know, because I was under the impression before common sense would lead my way. Common sense would never fail me. But common sense is attached directly to your ego, and the ego is the one that you see in the mirror. So, 2 years ago, if you asked me who I would snicker at you and say, of course I know who I am, you fool. Who else could know who I am? But I was the fool. I was the fool. I didn't know who I was. I swore I knew who I was. Through my rigged common sense and me being in this lower consciousness of my own self, I was getting lost in the game. Through Tyler, through my veil, I was getting lost and forgot who I really was. See, all you have is the center point. All things begin from a point. A seed demonstrates this. When you plant a seed in the ground, or you fertilize a seed, all creation begins from that point, the seed. A spider web, DNA, a microscopic view of a hair follicle from a top-down view, it's all a circle. It's all a wheel with a center point. And that's what this is. The falling of man and the ascending of Jacob's ladder. You can picture right here, you see you have your dot. This is the beginning of creation. And then you have your circle outside of it. And all is this one point. Right? So the falling of man was the falling from this dot, the projection of this dot. So the falling of man was from this dot out into the earth, which you are now physical, you're now matter, because remember, this is a void, formless energy before it's projected out as a physical shape, as matter. So this is the falling of man coming out, and then the ascending of Jacob's ladder is going right back in. So this was the falling of man and the ascending of Jacob's ladder right back in. Convergent and divergent, convergent and divergent. In, out, in, out, in, out. That's how sex works. Female, male, male, female. It's the same thing, and I don't mean to be vulgar, but that is the life force of this universe. In and out, convergent and divergent. Just like a pair of lungs. That is the life force behind this universe. I want to finish up with this picture, though, because I'm getting so sidetracked. I have 30 days to make up for, so my mind is on a million different topics right now that I just want to shout to everyone right now. So I got to slow myself down and take this a little slow, because I'm getting excited right now. That's right, the way out is always in. And X marks the spot. X marks the spot. This is what's between your very eyes. This dot, this central point, this is the universe right here. This little dot right here is the entire universe behind your very eyes, becoming aware through brain sensory. You're projecting the entire universe, and why are we all projecting the same universe? Why are we all seeing the same thing? Because we're a collective consciousness. We use 10% of our brains, 90% of our subconscious brain. You see? So we're all one collective consciousness, but we're only 10% different through veils, through images. But this is your two eyes right here. These are your two eyes that are tricking you, that are deceiving you. This is what you swear that is nothing is real. This is what you think you're seeing everything with. Wrong. It's projecting everything you're seeing from this. And that's why the past and the future is an illusion. There is no past and no future. You can think of the Egyptians and everything that's happened, you think has happened, is happening right now. It's all happening right now because we've never left this point. Time is not a linear scale or linear factor. This is not how time works. So if someone died back here, it didn't already happen. They always were. And one thing that we should also understand is you don't need to ever remember who you were in your past life or who you were in a reincarnation, because that shows you're not understanding it properly. You are everyone. You are every single person that's ever been born. That includes the bad. Unfortunately, but this is what some people choose not to accept. That God is the two energies, the dual energies of the good with the bad. So anything that's ever happened in this universe is a result of you. This is something we choose not to live with, not to see. We say, oh, well, it just needs to be love. Everyone just needs to love each other, and this just needs to be it, and hate needs to go somewhere else. That's a reality of insanity. It's predictable. You could live every single day, every day, and I could tell you what would happen. It'd be too predictable. Where you have good, you must have bad. No one would appreciate the good if there wasn't the bad. And it sounds sick, but it's true. The two energies are a plane. And you cannot have one without the other, and you can't appreciate one without the other. But you are all of them. You are all of these veils. You are everyone who has been born, everyone that will be born, and everyone that is born. You're all of them. So you don't need to worry about who was I in my past life, or which person was I. You were all of them. You're doing this. It's all you. Consciously or subconsciously, it's all you. And so, from my opinion, and as I said, I don't mean to offend anybody, I'm sure people are going to laugh at me, that's fine, but it's my opinion through my research that Jesus Christ was never a person that walked this earth. Jesus Christ was a metaphor, which was the remembering of this consciousness that has been lost. As I said in this live video, the Big Bang was nothing other than the resetting of our consciousness. We were reset. We keep being reset through our technology. We keep going through the cavemen times, and then we advance our technology so much to where it destroys humanity. So we are destroying our own selves. The Dark Ages are a result of us. And I've always said this, but man is playing God. But if God could play man, couldn't man play God? This is the thing. Nobody thinks of this stuff. But man has been playing God for centuries, and if God could be playing man, then man could be playing God. Why? Well, because the two are one and the same. Bingo. No one can stop you from killing a whole country. No one could stop you from doing that. That's pure evil. But why can no one stop you? Because you are it. You are everything. You are the good, you are the bad. There's nothing stopping you from committing the most hateful act or the most loving act. There's nothing stopping you for the very reason that you are it. There is nothing outside the universe governing it or dictating it. It's you. And so it is my humblest opinion that everything that has to do with Jesus Christ in the Bible is a metaphor. And I hear that used a lot, so I'm going to explain myself. But everything having to do with Jesus was a metaphor. For this right here, this is what I'm going to explain, because I haven't explained this yet. They told us that Jesus Christ, if you look this up on Google, was born between 7 BC and 4 BC. If you know how the time systems work, BC used to run backwards, so the time went 300, 200, 100, 0. And AD, which is where we are at now, runs upward. 100, 200, 300. So we're at 2016, 17, 18. Obviously you get it. BC would have been the opposite. 2018, 17, 16. So, if Jesus was born on between the 7th and 4th of AD, or BC, I'm sorry, BC, that would put him right here, just a few inches from the center point. Now, I'm sure some of you are already knowing what I'm getting at here. They've off-balanced his birth and put it away from the center point by an inch. Because when you put Jesus' birth at the 7th or the 4th of BC, he's just off the center point by a fraction, which is still unbalanced. And as we know, all creation begins from the center point. So it's my humblest opinion, from my findings, that Jesus Christ never walked the earth. Jesus Christ is not real, is not a real person. Jesus Christ, the birth of Jesus Christ was the metaphor for the birthing of all of us, because we are all this central point. As I said, this is what's sitting behind all of our eyes. Every single one of us. This is what's behind us. So the birth of Jesus was the birth of the center point that created the dual states of past, present, and future. Of BC and AD. So you had a before Christ, which is before Christ, before you knew you were Christ, before you knew your lower state of being, and then you've got an after Christ where you know you are Christ. You found the Father, you're in heaven. You see? So this is your lower state of being, this is your higher state of being. It's a metaphor. It's a metaphor. This is your birthing. And before Christ is before you figured out you are Christ. After Christ, or during the time, Anno Domini means during the time of Christ, is when you are becoming aware that you are Christ. Because Christ is nothing but the consciousness, Christ consciousness. It's a state of mind. Just as sadness is a state of mind, happiness is not a place, it's a state of mind. Heaven is a state of mind. And it's the same thing. It's all inside your mind. It's all in your head. And this is what I've found. This is what I think is to be true. Jesus was not a man. The birthing of Jesus represents the birthing of that center point behind the eyes of every single human that's ever walked this earth. And like I said, there's a beginning stages of not knowing, there's a middle stage of knowing, and there's an end stage of knowing. And this is the stages of yourself. You could look at this as the chakras system. This is the lowest chakra, this is the crown highest chakra. And you slowly make your way up this chakra system until you realize and reach the top, and bam, you're it. That's when you've reached the Father. Above. Where's the Father? Father's above. Inside. And so I'm going to read what I wrote here. Again, more metaphors, explaining more metaphors. And for those of you who want to see this picture closer, I'm going to post this picture for you later, so don't worry about that. If you can't see it or you want to make out more of this, I will post this as soon as this video is done, so don't even worry about it. But I definitely took the liberty of signing it because it's the first I've seen. Like I said, I want to do something unique, and this snake biting his own tail represents the realization of yourself. That's another thing I wanted to cover, is when you're born, you begin at the center. You're birthed out, which again, you're in the beginning stages of not knowing that you're Christ. So this is before Christ. Before you're aware you are Christ. You're birthed, and you're coming around. You make it back to the center, but then you're coming back around here again, and by the time you've bitten your own tail, it's your death. It's time to die. It's the cycle of life. So you're birthed before knowing, and then by the time you come back around, you should have figured out you are Christ. And so you come back around to bite your own tail, meaning you figured out that it is you again. And that's what the snake represents, to infinity. That's why the snake represents infinity. Or the snake biting his own tail represents infinity. Because you're infinitely birthing yourself through all these different veils to persistently ask the questions of, who am I? We don't think of these things, but you're breaking down the very fundamentals of every single thing a human being does for the simple reason that you're understanding your lower self. You sit there and study other people and you ask, why do they do this? Why does he look a certain way? Why does she walk a certain way? Why does you studying people and asking the questions itself is you trying to get a better handle on who you are? But as I said, not the mirror image of who you are. The who you are that sits behind your eyes. That's what's asking the question. This is what's asking the question of, who am I in this veil? Because this is who you are, not this, not this. You're in a dual state of thinking. Your brain is split into two hemispheres, just as all things are dual. And this is scientifically proven. You can look it up. Your brain has two sides to it. Your creative and imaginative side, and then your logical side, which is facts, and then this is your more imaginative and dreamy type of side, which are two opposites. And together, they work against each other. They don't help each other. They work against each other. One side saying, well, magic is real and this and all that stuff. And the other side saying, if I can't prove it, it's not real. You're battling your own self. But I'll read what I put here, explaining more metaphoric terms. This is you realizing yourself, but again and again, biting your own tail. We're all one. We are Alice tumbling down the rabbit hole, which has no end. Hence, the infinite logo. But that's the thing. We are all Alice tumbling down that rabbit hole, because this is who we are. The central self. And Alice tumbling down that rabbit hole was nothing other than her discovering herself again and again and again and again and again. And that's why the caterpillar asked her very aggressively, who are you? And she even says, well, I don't know, sir. When I woke up this morning, I thought I knew, but by now I have no idea. We're all, Alice, tumbling down that rabbit hole, thinking we have an understanding of who we are. And it isn't until we have our foundation shook that we realize we have no idea who we are, because we've never searched, honestly. We've never drawn aside the veil and looked. Instead, we choose to play hide and seek. We choose to hide. We choose to put off the prolonging of one. We choose to put off our own selves. We swear that religion or something outside of ourselves is going to save us or bring us the answer or allow us to think equal to this Godhead being. And that's not the way it works. Because the Godhead will never be the head of his own knowledge. That's a famous line from Alan Watts. The Godhead can't be the head of his own knowledge. You can't be born already knowing because, as I said, you can't consciously know you're lying to yourself. Otherwise, the lie wouldn't work. You can't consciously tell yourself a lie every day and believe it. Deep down. And so you have to trick yourself. You have to convince yourself this is real beyond a doubt. This is real and this is all you have. You're getting lost in the very game of creation with your own self. And the veil that you're inside of is what you're hiding behind, is what you're playing with, is what you're getting lost in, is what you're getting emotionally invested in and attached to. Back to this, I put, all creation begins from the point, all is a projection from that point. The Father God is what sits behind our very eyes, and the forbidden fruit is DMT. The talking snake is your Kundalini, you are it. So the talking snake tempting you to eat that fruit was your Kundalini inside of your own mind the whole time that rose up your spine to allow you to reach the Christ consciousness. This knowledge has been made evil. This knowledge has been turned into evil. That's why this is called the dark knowledge of God. This is considered dark knowledge because they want you to stay in the lower being, lower consciousness of the central self. They want you to stay trapped in the lower being of consciousness. So the talking snake, this has all been made evil, but the talking snake was not Satan, it was your own Kundalini, your own self, your own higher self, trying to get your lower self to awaken. And so it's telling you, it's tempting you with the forbidden fruit, which is DMT, the spiritual molecule, which is telling you, if you take this, you will find out who you are, and you'll stop playing the game. You'll stop being enslaved by this lower consciousness. And that's why it was forbidden, because we are forbidden to take that fruit. We are forbidden to know we are God. We are it. We are this being. We're forbidden to know that because we're supposed to stay stuck in the lower conscious mind of the ego. That's literally all it is. That's all that it is. That's why it's been made evil, because we're supposed to stay stuck. Just simply realizing who you are is liberation from the universe, from all things, from anything you can think of. So for some people they say, well, what difference will it make in my life? I still have to go to work. You're not thinking of it right. You still have to go to work. Well, of course you still have to go to work. Well, of course you still have to go about your day. But the question is, are you dwelling in your day? Are you feeling like, poor little me, I've got to go to work, and then it's not fair because I've got to do this, and life's so hard because the universe did this to me, and now I've got to go do this, and now I've got to go do that, and this person cut me off, and this person's so rude, and this person just did... You see, that's someone who's unconsciously aware that they're creating their own misery, their own problems. Yes, you still have to wake up and go to work. But are you creating your own stress and misery? Are you dwelling in your own problems that don't exist, that aren't real, and that don't even matter? Because the answer is yes. You're creating your own hell, your own dwelling, your own problems, your own illusionary problems. But one thing I tell people is when you become aware of who you are, of your higher conscious self, you end up laughing at your lower conscious self when you do see, because you're going to slip up. You're human. Just because you know, even me, just because I know this, doesn't mean I don't slip up throughout my day and get angry, get sad, get depressed, get whatever, triggered by anything. You know, I feel the human emotion as well. But there's a difference between dwelling in them and saying, poor me, nothing's going to change, this is just horrible. And then my higher consciousness is laughing and saying, look at you, ha ha ha. You're getting lost in the game. You're pretending as if this is real. I'm just making a joke to myself, ha ha ha. Look at you crying at this when that's not even real. But you embrace it. You don't shame yourself for it, you embrace it. Because you're now enjoying the human experience. Instead of being confined to the human experience and feeling like, oh, well, I definitely don't want to reincarnate here, or this is a horrible place, this is a prison, this is hell. You're creating it. You're making it a hell. You're making it horrible. You're making it misery. Of course you wouldn't want to reincarnate here again. As if you had the choice. Did you have to check yes or no if you wanted to be born? Absolutely not. So what would make you think reincarnation is a choice? You had no choice from the beginning. And that's why you're so scared tumbling down the rabbit hole. None of this was your choice. You didn't have a choice to exist or not. None of it was. We don't have a choice to reincarnate. You're tumbling down the rabbit hole. You had no choice to exist or non-exist. That's what's so frightening. It would be so much easier if nothing existed at all. Effortless. But we do. And so we have the persistent questions knocking in our head, leading us to self-discovery, leading us to soul search, and leading us to these day and night pictures and trying to put to words what this all is, what we're experiencing, what it is. And so the last thing I put for this, and as I said, I'm going to post this again right after this video, so if you didn't catch anything with this or you want to look at it closer, don't worry, I'll post it later. But the last thing I wrote on this is the Godhead is never the head of his own knowledge, and so this is where self-discovery comes from naturally. You are it. And for most people, that's what they say. I know something, but what it is, I can't put a name to. I can't say what I know, but I know something. There's something greater than myself that I know. This is it. This is what you know. This is the Great Awakening. This is attaining Satori. The sudden enlightenment of yourself. We're all Buddha. The Buddha meant nothing other than the man who awakened. That's what the Buddha meant, the man who awakened from the dream. Maya means the illusion. So the Mayans were under the impression this was an illusion. They knew. All our ancient tribes have given us the answers through their names, through what they've given us. We're overthinking it. We're overlooking it. Maya means illusion. All this is an illusion. But one thing I want to ask people, because there's so many people on my friends who say we need to return to 5D or 5-dimension reality, and we need to return to 5D consciousness. What does that even mean? For one, because for one thing, that is a human construct. 5D is a human construct. It's not real. That's something we've defined and given a name as a higher state of consciousness, just like the crown chakra is a metaphoric term for reaching the highest state of consciousness. There's so many names for it, as I already named. Bodhi, Satori, Nirvana, there's so many names for these. But my question is, because so many people say all we have to do is reach 5D consciousness and the game is over and all this is done and this is it. What would you do with your own self for eternity? That means forever. Not just today, not for a month, not for a year, forever. What would you do with yourself if you attained this great knowledge of 5D? Whatever it is you think that is, whatever you think it is, I want you to create this image of what you think it is. I'm not even going to say what I think it is. Let's say you attain this great, magnificent knowledge of everything, of all knowing, everything. What do you then do with yourself? What do you do? You attained all this knowledge and now you sit here and say, okay, now what? I'm bored already, now what? What do I do with myself now? The answer is very obvious. It's what's happening right in front of us, in front of our very eyes. The universe is creating itself. And that's what we're doing. We are the supreme being. Beyond this body, we are creating the entire universe. And this is exactly what you would do if you knew everything, if you had all the knowledge. You wouldn't sit around and just tap yourself, tap your fingers and be, okay, I know everything, now what? Because if you knew everything, you would know you're the only person in existence. And as I said, not through physical, not through the physical, through the spiritual. There is only one in existence. These veils are the illusion. These veils are the illusion. So what would you do if you were this one being of great spiritual energy that didn't have a shape or form and that was just energy? How else could you experience pure energy that had no shape, that had no form? Well, the answer is quite obvious. It's sitting behind your eyes. This is the only way that experiencing energy would work. So for everybody who's saying we need to attain 5D consciousness and we need to obtain this great consciousness, and then what? And then what? Life still goes on. I just want people to note that, because I see people posting that once we reach this 5D state of consciousness and everyone is back to one, that the whole game is over and stuff, and it's not the case. There's always going to be Agent Smiths. That's one thing we have to realize. There's always going to be Agent Smiths that are walking around and trying to convince people or pollute people's minds. Keep them stuck. Keep them in that lower state of consciousness, to where they're playing the game as the poor little me, and not the entirety, the universe. Because when we look at things that happen to us that we're unconscious of, we say, oh, well, that's unfair. Or we call it fate. Let's say I get into a car accident. Or anything. Could be anything. I lost $100 today in the parking lot. I would say, oh, well, that's not fair. Fate had me doomed today. Fate was against me today because I lost my money. But there's no difference from the voluntary and the involuntary. From what you're doing and what you're unconsciously doing, there is absolutely no difference. And again, this is another great piece from Alan Watts. Another great piece from Alan Watts. Because he fully covers the fact that there is absolutely nothing, no difference between what you're consciously telling yourself to do and what you're unconsciously telling yourself to do. When you breathe, you're aware of yourself breathing, but what about when you're in a conversation, or you're at the bar with some buddies, or you're at the mall with your girlfriends or something? You're talking with them and you're getting lost in wherever you're at. You're not telling your body to breathe at that same steady pace, yet it's doing it. And you're telling it to do that, but you're not consciously aware you're telling it to do that. And in this very same act, if you're beating your own blood, you're shining the sun. Same words from Alan Watts. If I am my foot, if I am my hand, I am the sun. If I beat my own blood and I pump my heart, I pump the sun. I shine the sun. There is no difference between the voluntary and involuntary. It's a matter of, am I conscious of what's happening or am I unconscious of what's happening? So there's no such thing as fate. And that's why when you ask somebody if they believe in fate, they will persistently answer no. They don't believe in fate because it terrifies us. We don't want to be under the illusion or the impression that we're not in control of our own destiny, of our own faith, or of our own path, result. And it's also nice to have someone out there to blame. So when things don't go wrong, we say, oh, God damn it. God damn it, why in the hell did you do this to me? God, why don't you just love me? Why don't you give me a break? Give me a break. This is so unfair. And that's you unconsciously playing the game with your own self. And even I do this. But as I said, as I'm doing it, Inside my head, I'm saying, look at you, get lost in the game. And I laugh at myself. Look at you having a human experience. You see, we make this human experience so dreadful, so ugly and miserable, and I've got to go to work today, and I've got to do this and that, and it's so horrible. Who said you had to feel anything at all, other than yourself? And this is why I say, you can become liberated from your own self, free from your own self. Not by not being alive, because as I've said to people, if you are too much of your higher being, then you're just going to be a robot in your bodily form. You'll be a robot. So it's vital that you balance the two out, but it's also vital to not remain this poor little me. You must embrace the tears, embrace the laughter, embrace the misery, embrace the pain, embrace the loss, embrace all of it equally. All of it. Embrace it all equally, because that is you getting lost in the very game. You feeling anything at all is you getting lost in the game. It's not real. That's what we forget. Who said you were alive at all? As I said, we don't know the difference between life or death because we've never been alive. Nor have we ever been dead. We've only been consciously veiled and persistently asking ourselves, who are we? What is this creation? What is everything around me? And this universe seems far more big when you don't realize that you are it. When you don't look at the universe as you do your own self and study the universe as you do your own self, not only does the universe seem scary, but it seems foreign, outside of yourself. It seems humongous, unexplainable. And it's really not that complicated, because from micro to macro, it means just that. Like, for someone to give that any definition other than what that's saying is wrong. From micro to macro. So if it applies to the micro, it applies to the macro. If it applies to the macro, it's going to apply to the micro, and vice versa. The two need each other because the two are one. Just as you break down the difference between man and God. The two are one. God's playing man and man's playing God. The two are one. And this is where you can connect it all. Because it's all connected. It's all connected. Everything. It's all connected. This right here is NASA. This is an actual picture of NASA's released photograph of our entire universe. This is from NASA, people. NASA. This is the entire universe in one picture. So your first question, who the hell took this picture? Second question, how did we get this far out to take this picture? Third question, how do we know that our universe is a wheel, a circle? I'll show you how. Because they know they're full of crap. When you look at this model from NASA, and then you look at this, it makes a little bit more sense to you, yeah? It makes a little bit more sense. And I already said in the beginning of this video, this is where I expect a lot of people to laugh at me. This is where I expect a lot of people to exit my videos, to not take me serious, to make fun of me. And I welcome it, I embrace it, that's fine. But I feel 100% in my heart that this is correct. And if I can just get this into a few other people that may be a little more advanced on the science side than myself, that aren't corrupt government people, I feel that we may have a chance in getting this properly examined and retaught. But as I said, look at the picture from NASA. You see a central void there. This is the void of creation. And what you must remember that is the Pythagoreans said exactly this. The earth unfolded from a void in the center. The earth unfolded from a void in the center. Unfolded from a void in the center. So when you look at this universe, Earth could be this galaxy out of all these galaxies here. So Earth itself did not unfold from this random void right here, out of a billion galaxies. Earth unfolded ever so intelligently from this one. And then you look at the human eye. The human eye. Why is the black on the inside and not the outside? Look at that. The black is on the outside because it's outer space. The black's on the inside because it's inner space. It's not outer space. So from micro to macro. Micro to macro. If it applies to the micro, it applies to the macro. And this, you have the human eye. Now the next picture I'm going to show you is what NASA and in every single textbook is teaching our kids that our model is. What shape do you see again? You see a circle. And this is where I love this part right here. The only difference between the model I'm teaching, which is concave Earth, and the model that they're teaching our children is the fact that there is a central sun, yes? That central sun revolves around the inside of space. So that's where they got the central sun from. That's where they got the sun being stationary. And then everything else following and revolving around it, as well as the planets. But if you look over here, the sun is revolving around this inner ball, and so are the planets. We're looking into the skies, not out. That's why we've never seen a change in our constellations. They've been drawn as animals for centuries. But this is where they got their model from. The sun is not yellow, it's black. And you can even look this up. Through ancient times, there has been very distinct versions of the sun. One was called the golden sun, the yellow sun that we see, the golden sun. The other was called the black sun. The black sun is this right here. This is the black sun. This is associated with the Nazis. So to anybody who doesn't know my philosophy, who doesn't know this teaching, they're going to say that this is a racist logo. This is a Nazi racist logo. This is not the case, however. The Nazis took this from the Indian tribe, which, as they called the ether, Akasha, right? But the Indians called the black sun the feathered sun, because it had points pointing out from the center and points pointing in toward the circumference. So that's giving you convergent in and divergent forces. So even the Indians knew about the black sun. Even the Indians knew about the ether, which they called Akasha. And as I said, when you look up the feathered sun, it has lines going out from the center point and lines going in to the circumference, which is the center point. And that's what this represents. This represents the universe. This ball right here is the formless energy, the ball of primal materia. This is the void of creation. This is the void that Earth unfolded from. And all this outside here is the radiation radiating outward from that center point to create the sphere around. And what's funny is someone told me that this is incorrect and that I'm very wrong in my understanding of this. They told me that this represents this. He says, the black sun logo represents the entire universe as this. But let me show you why that's very incorrect. Because if you want to break down this black sun logo, why is there exactly 12 sections in between there? Yeah? Jesus had 12 disciples. King Arthur had 12 knights of the round table. Yeah, I love that story, right? There's exactly 12 sections here because this is everything you're seeing in the universe. 12 o'clock, the hands on a clock. This is your seasons, your months, your zodiac wheel. This is everything in the universe revolving around that central point. Even a compass, everything revolves around the central point. And there's a reason I chose to get this flag on my wall. If anyone's even curious about that or gives a damn. But I just want to stress to people, it does not represent racism, that does not represent white power, that does not represent Nazism or anything like that. Nothing associated with that. That's not why I have it on my wall. The reason I have it on my wall is because you're not allowed to post this picture right here on Facebook. I just got out of Facebook jail for 30 days for someone reporting my picture on Hitler and the Nazis and the Vril technology and the Black Sun. Okay? So we're not allowed to post this. So I decided, since I'm not allowed to post it, this is going to be seen on every single live that I have to do. But basically, what we're living inside of, I'm going to wrap this video up soon because I've covered a lot of things and I want people to have time to let it sink in with them. I'm going to cover these last few stacks of paper and then I'll probably end this live. But what we're living inside of, because as I said, the universe is enclosed. This is our universe right here. This is our universe. The word una itself, UNI, means one. Universe is one. So this is our universe right here. And I will say this. Recently, I have been entertaining the idea, because it's not impossible, and I am open to this. But let's say, some people have asked, well, what's outside of our ball, where we live? What's outside of our ball? My opinion would be, if there is anything outside of our ball, is on the outside of our ball is this. We're stars to another outside world, and if you go into the other one, it's a never-ending Russian doll. Never-ending. This is my theory, though. If the Earth does have layers like this, meaning you enter this sphere, and then there's another Earth, and another Earth, and another Earth, if this is our true universe and Earth, which I possibly feel it may be, then it has no end. There's an infinite amount of these. Infinite. It has no end. And when you start studying fractal patterns, you realize they have no end either. They're infinite. And then you break down the functions of our universe and you realize our universe itself is a fractal pattern. It is a fractal pattern. And as I just said, fractals repeat themselves to infinity. So I'm not going to make a claim that this is a never-ending Russian doll, but I am convinced that it is. Because as I said, a fractal pattern will repeat a spiral, and what happens when you look at a spiral, a vortex? It never ends. It just keeps spiraling down and down and down and down, and you never reach the bottom because it's simply swirling in the same pace. So you never reach the end. It's infinite, forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. So if our universe is like this, then there isn't just 7 realms, as some people think or say in the Bible and other things, but there's an infinite amount of realms. Not just 7, not just 9, not just 12. There's an infinite amount of realms. And those realms would be Alice tumbling through the rabbit hole. Each place she went to was a different realm. It's quite possible. I'm going to cover real quick, though, in my opinion, 100% proof on why this model is correct as far as us looking inside the Earth. As far as this being true. Because when you have this understanding of space, you understand you're looking inside of a black ball to see the stars and to see the skies. You're looking inside of this ball. You're not looking out into infinite space. You're looking into this ball, which is this right here. This is the moon's phases inside of the Earth. This is the inside space. This is inner space. And this is the moon's phases inside the Earth. The light bends naturally around the field. But I want you to keep this image in mind right here, that black ball in the center. And this is all of us on the outside living inside of this ball looking in. Okay, so keep this image in mind. Keep it in mind. And then you look at this picture. These are the 2 hemispheres. That's strange. One hemisphere rotates in a perfect wheel-like pattern this way. The other rotates in a perfect wheel-like pattern this way. How is that possible on a flat plane? Huge question there. How is this possible on a flat plane? It's not. It's not. Okay, so we can either see reality and argue it or face the facts. It's not possible. So in the north hemisphere, stars rotate left counterclockwise around the northern celestial pole. In the southern hemisphere, stars rotate clockwise around the southern celestial pole. Motion of the stars proves that the Earth is spherical and rotates around its axis. If the Earth is flat, stars would appear to move in a very different way. So again, I'm not saying the Earth is the way it's been taught, but the Earth is definitely round. And as I said, we're inside of it. That's why you see the stars moving in a perfect ball-like pattern, because you're looking at this ball rotate, left or right. So another thing that this is that I want people to note is this spiral right here, this spiral motion that you're seeing is also called a fractal pattern, which is what I just got done talking about. This universe is a repeating fractal pattern, and the sky beyond proves that, which is what I'm about to show you right here. This is Tesla's understanding right here. This was Tesla's basic premise of everything right here. If you only knew the magnificence of the 3, 6, and 9, you would have a key to the entire universe. What this man meant by that, what this man meant by this very quote, because there's so many people trying to explain this quote, I mean overly explain it, but all that simply means is that this universe is a repeating fractal pattern. One example of Tesla's 369 before Tesla was the phi. Phi equals 1 as 1 equals phi. To infinity and beyond. Why? Because phi is a fractal pattern. So Tesla's 3, 6, and 9 was none other than a fractal pattern. It was just a unique way of representing phi. Phi and the 3, 6, and 9 are the same thing. They're fractal patterns, meaning they will repeat to infinity. That's why you see phi and the golden ratio throughout nature. Because we are living in a fractal pattern, which, as Tesla said, learn the magnificence of the 3, 6, and 9, you'll unlock fractal patterns. That's what he meant. A fractal pattern is none other than something that repeats itself, like a spiral, or any pattern. But the point is the pattern will repeat, and repeat, and repeat, and repeat. That's what he meant by this. So that's what you're seeing here. You're seeing them repeat as circles, circles, circles. A vortex is repeating itself. Now here. Milky Way, long exposure, looks like fractal geometry. There's your Milky Way. Now, isn't that strange again? A fractal pattern. A fractal pattern in the Milky Way. Fractal pattern in the stars. Fractal patterns in nature. In your fingerprint. Why is the golden ratio on my thumb? Why is the golden ratio on my fingerprints? From micro to macro. Here's the moon's phases for 2019. What do you see there? Is it more fractal patterns? Do you see those spirals? Those vortexes are fractal patterns. And you only get these type of patterns from the moon, from the stars, and from the Milky Way galaxy if you were looking inside of a ball. That's the only way you would get a perfect ball every time when you're looking in the sky for a long period of time. A ball. A ball. See? And it's a spiral. It's always spiraling because space is moving in a vortex motion. And to me, this is the most groundbreaking proof I've ever shown on concave Earth ever. So to me, if this didn't blow your mind, nothing will, because I blew my own mind with this one right here. This to me is beyond disputable. You're actually seeing with your own eyes the same repeating patterns in all things in the sky. Here's another one. These are shots at the equator of the stars. At the center, this is at the equator. See how this side's moving this way? This side's moving that way? But they're still doing wheels, vortexes. That's a fractal pattern. This right here, when we see pictures of vortexes like this, and a lot of people who take DMT or something, they'll have stuff, you know, they'll have like these hung on their wall. This is called a fractal pattern. If you ever see one of these on your friend's wall, it's funny, most stoners and most people who take LSD and DMT are known to have these on their walls. Big blankets of tie-dyed or vortexes. And it's because when you take DMT, this is what you see. And I'll show you for exact, I'll show you exactly what I actually saw in my DMT trip. When I took DMT, I got sucked through a hole. I don't want to call it a rabbit hole because I don't like being too typical about things, but I understood where the rabbit hole term came from, because when I took DMT, I was sucked into a hole. And when I got sucked into that hole, this is what I saw. Time didn't stop. Nothing stopped. Everything was moving. I watched myself go from 12 to 11 to 10 to 9 to 8 all the way to 1, except it didn't stop. It just kept going around and around and around and around and around, and it had no end. But at some point in my trip, I don't know if I reached the bottom of it or if I just finally came to a realization, but I jumped out of my sleep and I said, I am that I am. Because when you get to the bottom of the rabbit hole, when you see the bottom of that rabbit hole, you see that it is only you in existence. And that is some of our biggest fears. We play video games with computers and other things, and we say, well, this is no fun because I'm playing my own self. It's no fun to play by yourself. It's no fun to talk to yourself. So you've got to create other beings. You've got to create fun. You've got to create other things to marvelously trick yourself into realizing, hey, I'm talking to my own self. Just like now, everyone who's watching, I'm talking to myself. We're all a collective consciousness, just veiled. So I'm talking to myself. I'm just talking to a different form of myself. I am you. You are me. I am that I am. You are too. But that's what these are. These are fractal patterns repeating. And that's what they're showing you. They're showing you that point. Every single vortex that you will ever look down has a point. And that point is what we're putting off our entire lives. All these have points. Do you see the center point? The center point is what's creating all of this. This is basically your mind. You can think of this as your mind and the entire universe coming to life. Because as I said, this center point, which is all there is to creation, the entire universe is this center point behind your eyes. You are the very universe coming to life, asking the very questions of what this is outside of you. And this very pattern here that you're seeing so vibrantly radiating out from the center is your consciousness, is your presence, expanding and growing, your consciousness growing, and this is you becoming aware of your own self. This is what any vortex, any fractal pattern will show you, is the fact that it started from one point. Any fractal pattern will have the point to creation. And just as the Pythagoreans said, and I already said this earlier, but the Pythagoreans said that Earth unfolded from a center point in the center. It unfolded. Unfolded. And that's what all of these are showing you. Fractal patterns. Fractal patterns. The Milky Way. Fractal pattern. So it's like if we don't get who we are by now, then we're only making it hard for ourselves. Everything I've shared with this video has taken me 25 years to find. No, I haven't been searching for it all the 25 years, but it's taking me my entire life to figure this out, to get to this point here. And as I said earlier, I'm aware I'm talking to myself, but there's still the game we're playing. And when you know, you'd like other people to know as well. So in the Matrix, when he was telling him to follow the white rabbit, right? Follow the white rabbit, he was telling him to come down the rabbit hole, which is to come down the vortex. And when you go down any vortex, as I said, it will lead you into that center point where there is a dot and nothing more. And it's at that dot that you realize that you are that dot, the central point, becoming aware of its own self. There is nothing more. And as I said, for some this is terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. Shaking. Because we've depicted Big Papa as this person outside the universe that's controlling our fate. That's under the universe, or above the universe, dictating and controlling everything. And it's absolutely not the case. So we put all of our faith into something outside of ourselves. And then when we find out it's us the whole time, we're terrified. Absolutely horrified. This is a very accurate depiction of our Earth right here. Because as I said, it's very possible our Earth is just an Earth inside 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 an Earth. And you're only... Notice it's the same man in each picture because he is discovering it's himself again and again and again and again and again and again. Through reincarnation. Through creating. All reincarnation is you creating a lower being for your own self, for your own fun. You're not this lower state being that you've created. This is who you're having fun as. This is who you're playing the game as. It's when you get attached to the character, to this person, that life becomes so hard. And that this truth becomes hard to accept. That you are not the body. You are infinite. And so many people say that we're infinite. Even Christians in the Bible have said we're masks of God. But what does that mean? We're masks of God. And God's name in that very Bible was, I am that I am. Now nobody else can say the words, I am for you except you. So when you say those very words, you're saying exactly what you're saying. I am that I am. It gets no simpler. You are it. I like this picture too. It doesn't have much meaning to it, but I did like it because it is true. As I said, space is inside, not outside. So when you understand this as our universe, you see that this is not so far from reality. Space is inside, and the astronauts are trying to enter the inside. Here's the two pillars of Freemasonry. This is Freemasons. This is the two pillars. You notice you have your two dualities there. Two. And then you've got that one center point creating all of it. That's exactly what my picture shows. The snake is the two pillars. The past and the future is those two pillars. And then you've got that center point that's creating those two. Just as the center here is creating these two, because all is now. All is now. All is the center. Time does not exist on a linear scale. Time is an illusion. All that exists is the center point. The center point. Even the Freemasons know that. And I want to share something else with people. Because I've been under the impression my whole life that Freemasons are evil people. And I won't say they're not evil, but I will say this. They're not the ones doing most of the dirty work in the governments. The Freemasons are simply keeping this very knowledge sacred within their own lodges. They're keeping the fact that this central self is all that there is, hence their picture. They feel that only a select few deserve to know this. So it's not that they're evil, but they're keeping us in this lower knowledge, lower consciousness, because they're hiding the center point from creation. And as I said, they feel only a select few are deserving and worthy of this knowledge. These are throughout the world. A ball inside of a ball. Or as said in the Bible, a wheel inside of a wheel. A wheel inside of a wheel. These are all throughout the globe, the universe. I believe there's one in Spain and one in France, something like that, and there's a few over on that side of the country. But that's symbolism right there speaking. Ancient Egypt. There's the point. There's the point. They're sitting under the point. Male, female. There's duality again. There's two. These are your two pillars that I just showed. Two pillars, one point. And notice how it's got lines radiating out from that point. Here's an ancient Egyptian. There's the center point inside of his brain, behind his eyes. Inside his brain, there's the center point. They were fully aware. And this I had to print out because this is absolutely true. I'll read it for you guys. I don't think you can see it. But it says, "The Wizard of Oz is like the story that religion portrays. You go through your life journey looking for someone else to take you home. There are wake-up calls along the way, but nope. You still continue to blindly follow, looking for that wizard in the sky to save you, when all along it has always been you." And this is the knowledge we're putting off. This is what we're refusing to believe. Why? Because our common sense, which is rigged into our ego, tells us otherwise. It tells us we know who we are. It's not true. It's a lie. It's a rigged common sense system. Why? Because, as I said, if you're going to trick yourself, you can't be consciously aware of the trick. How do you think magicians work? People are in utter shock of how magicians, oh my God, well if they knew the magician's trick, it doesn't work. It's not surprising. It doesn't keep you at the edge of your seat. You can only be kept at the edge of your seat if you don't know. So this I don't know is what keeps you in pursuit. This I don't know is what makes you naturally seek self-discovery, naturally ask questions. And this is why I said we're all Alice tumbling down the rabbit hole. We're all Jesus Christ being born and trying to find the Father within, again, trying to find the Father, the heaven. The Kundalini is the snake talking to us up our spine, tempting us with DMT, the spiritual molecule. We are it. We are this being. We are. It's not male or female. Male and female, he and she is a part of the ego. So it's not he, it's not she, it's it. And that's why God's name in the Bible was simply, I am that I am. No gender. I am that I am. Just as we're all Neo. Neo from the Matrix. Neo doesn't know who he is, but he has a great deal of sense that he knows something is not right, or he knows something greater than himself. And so, this something that he knows leads him to Morpheus. And I won't get into all of it, because most of us know the Matrix already far too well. But in the end, Neo has to face Mr. Smith, the agent. And in the end, it's pouring rain. In the final scene where Neo fights Mr. Smith, it's pouring rain. And Mr. Smith asks Neo, do you like what I've done with the place? Why? Because Mr. Smith hacked into the Matrix system, the mainframe. Because remember, your brain is just a receiver. And wherever you have a receiver, you must have a mainframe. Okay? So this is where the mainframe is where we get all our ideas, our thoughts. This is where thoughts are stored and kept and come from. Your brain is just the receiver to this mainframe. And so what Mr. Agent Smith did was he hacked into the mainframe of the Matrix and he made it pour rain. And so that's why in the last scene he asks him, Neo, do you like what I've done with the place? Because he hacked the Matrix and made it dark, made it evil, and made it pour rain. They fight till the death, and Mr. Smith swears he's going to win because he saw into the future, but the Oracle rigged it to where he thought he was going to win. He rigged it. So he's feeling all confident and cocky that he's going to win, but Neo already knows. He becomes consciously aware that he is Neo, the chosen one, God, and he is Mr. Smith, the devil. He is the good principle, and he is the bad principle. And he becomes aware at the end, through conscious choice alone, through choice itself, he has the power to be Mr. Smith. All through choice. Because he even says, I don't understand. Why are you still getting up? Why fight? And he even says, because I choose to. And choice alone is the most powerful thing in the universe. It's the most powerful phenomenon, because you're creating your reality. And so at the very, very end of this Matrix, Mr. Smith was not the one. Mr. Smith was not the one. I'll tell you why. And technically, Mr. Smith was Neo, so they were both one. There is no difference between it being Neo or Mr. Smith. But the good principle won, which was Neo. Because at the end of the movie, Neo ends up beating Mr. Smith. And as I said, it was pouring rain when he got there. In the very last scene, the Oracle is seen sitting on a bench, and she's admiring the sun. There's no more rain. She's admiring the sun, and she's telling this little girl that yes, he's still alive, Neo is still alive, and she's staring at the sun, because Neo turned into pure energy. He defeated Mr. Smith, hacked into the Matrix, erased the rain, or the evil from the Matrix, and put himself in as daylight. He became the sun. How? By choice, consciously choosing to, by becoming aware of who he was. He was the chosen one the whole time. He was Mr. Smith the whole time. He was the bad guy the whole time. That's how he beat him, realizing he was it. And so Neo rehacked the Matrix, erased everything he had did to it, and made it better again. That's why in the end they're showing the sun. Because they're representing that sun as Neo. And the Matrix is now back to normal, restored. And as I said, your brain is just the receiver. There is a mainframe out there, and that mainframe is the center point to creation. This here. This here. This is the mainframe. The center point to creation. The center to creation is the mainframe. This is where everyone is coming from. I told this to my friend the other day, but if you look at the sun, or you look at this right here, an eye, and you see how you have the black spot, but then you have all these little lines that come out. I mean, you could think of these lines as 1 billion different lines, right? Each one of these distinct lines is me and you. is us. This is our grand illusion of what we're calling life. And this is why I say we don't even know the difference between life and death because we've never been alive. We're only consciously veiled and we're dreaming. We're in a dream. That's why we never die. Life and death is no different. All these lines right here are individuals, are perceptions, billions of perceptions. And this is where we're all the receiver. Our brains are the receivers. A collective consciousness projecting the same universe because we are all this one point. But as I said, we're just projections from this point. So we are all one because we are all the mainframe, the matrix. We are all the whole system. However, we're only identifying with what we're consciously aware of. We're only identifying with who we see in the mirror. You say to yourself, okay, I want to open this door, so I tell my hand to grab the knob and open it. That was me that did that. But if I get struck by lightning, that was not me that did that. And that's a drastic example there, but I'm just saying. There is no difference between what you're consciously doing and what you're unconsciously doing. There's no difference between the voluntary and involuntary. It's all you. What you're telling yourself to do and what you're not telling yourself to do is still happening by you. You digest your food, you pump your blood, you grow your bones, you do all of these things. Without telling yourself to. You don't have to wake up and tell your immune system to kick on. You don't have to wake up and tell your heart to start pumping. You're doing that in your sleep. So even though you're not conscious of your body in your sleep, you are still consciously alive. So a lot of people say sleep is like death. No, you're still very much alive. You're just unconscious of the decisions you're making because you're not conscious of the body during sleep. And it's the same when DMT. When I took DMT and I was in my breakthrough stages, you experience paralysis. You cannot move your hands. You cannot move your legs. You can't move your body. Why? Because when you're in that state, your mind is not consciously connected to your body. No longer. You're no longer attached to the body, and that's where you can experience the killing of the ego, which is known as the breakthrough when you try DMT. The breakthrough stage. But we're basically ever so intelligently tricking our own selves, our lower selves, which is the ego, who we see in the mirror, who I'm looking at right now, listening to, is the ego. I'm watching my own ego speak right now. And the ego is not me being ego-filled. It's the body, the temporary. However, I'm not living behind the ego. I'm not under the impression I am the ego. I am aware I'm playing the game, and I'm consciously aware of my higher self. So I can look down at my lower self and have fun watching myself play the game. That includes the good with the bad. I can sit down and laugh at myself for crying or getting upset at someone, where back then I would be like, oh, I want to hit that guy in his face. Why do you make me so mad? Now I say, look at you. You're getting so mad for nothing. None of this matters even. Look at you getting lost in the game. Look at you playing. It's fun. It's now fun. It's not something that's so terrible. It's not something that's miserable. It's fun. It's entertaining now. Even getting lost in the bad times. Even experience loss or pain, sadness. I embrace it all because you are experiencing your human awakening. You're being human. Enjoy it. This is temporary and it's not who you are, so it shouldn't be taken serious. I am going to end this video though because it's been over an hour long. I like to stick with the hour marks on some of my videos because I don't want to drag and drag and drag and drag, which I feel I probably already done. And I do apologize if a lot of this was off topic, but my brain is like a million scattered thoughts at one time, trying to scream them all at once. So I try and organize it the best I can. But that was today's live. That was today's live. Thank you to everybody who watched, to everybody who shared. Thanks to everybody who posted on my wall while I've been gone. I hope this was worth 30 days of waiting for me to be out of Facebook jail. Because I certainly studied all 30 days. I was printing pictures out. I was reading. I've been doing work nonstop since I've been in Facebook jail, so I could have some good material when I come back. And I feel I've given some good stuff on this video here. But thanks to everybody who's been asking about me, who's posted on my wall, who messaged me. Just because I didn't respond doesn't mean I don't appreciate it. I have a lot of messages, a lot of comments, and it's just nice to know I'm thought about. People are paying attention to what I'm saying, and I'm making people think. Even if I'm made fun of or I'm the butt of someone's joke, I could care less. As long as I'm making people think, I'm very happy. But this video will be up on YouTube again. I'm going to post this picture that I talked about right after this live video. So if you want to see that again, I will be posting that picture again. If I could find the damn thing. This one. Alright. So as soon as I get off here, I'm going to post this picture right here. For anybody who wants a closer look. But thanks for sharing. Thanks for watching the video. Thanks for hearing me. And thanks for not making fun of me too bad. I'll see y'all later. And as always, inbox me if you have any questions or any gaps that you need filled, anything that you need reiterated for you. Let me know, and I'm free anytime. One love. One love.